Welcome to tonight's virtual family council meeting. My name is Jamie Rose. I'm your virtual family council coordinator. So we're going to review our confidentiality reminder. Please refrain from using the name of your loved one. Do not name specific facilities. Please use a nursing home or the personal care home to present to the group. If you need specific assistance, please use the chat feature to state which county you are in, and we will get you connected to your assigned ombudsman. And these calls have public access and are designed for family members and friends of residents in long-term care facilities. So our meeting agenda this evening, we're going to get our virtual meeting tips from Eliza, and then we're going to turn it over to Caitlin Foltz. She's going to cover how she achieved the Compassionate Caregiver Designation. We're also going to hear from her ombudsman, Corey Hurley, and then we'll review our upcoming meeting topics, actually through the rest of the year. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Eliza for our virtual meeting tips.
Hi, everyone. So you all have been placed in mute upon entry. We will open the lines in a bit so that you are all able to share. If you would like to speak or have a question, please use the raise hand feature. Once you raise your hand, we will know to acknowledge you and unmute your line. We will be using polls during the call. Please answer the questions by clicking on your response and clicking on submit. We will review the poll shortly. The chat feature is at the bottom of your screen as well. Once you maximize it, you'll be able to chat with presenters and others during the meeting tonight. Closed captioning is available during the call. If you would like to enable that, please click on the CC icon at the bottom of your screen. If you need to step away, you can stop sharing your camera by clicking on the camera icon at the bottom of the screen. You can click on it again to start sharing your camera. Concerns or complaints can be directed to the State Ombudsman Office at 717-783-8975 or by email at ltc-ombudsman@pa.gov. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Caitlin.
Thanks, Eliza. So I'll speak tonight on how I achieved Compassionate Caregiver Designation for my loved one who is also my grandmother. So first I'll go over just to give you a brief overview of the differences between compassionate care visitation and then regular visitation. So for the big difference with compassionate care visitation versus regular visitation is that compassionate care visitation always will go on no matter what the positivity rate is for the county that you live in or that your loved one's facility is in, I should say, or if there's a current outbreak at the facility as well. But for regular visitation, you can't always go in if the positivity rate is greater than 10%. And then, like I said a little bit earlier, if the resident has confirmed or suspected case of COVID, or if there's it's shut down for visitation because somebody else in the facility, whether it's staff or another resident, you can still go in for compassionate care visitation. But regular visitation obviously would be shut down if there was an outbreak anywhere in the facility. For compassionate care visitations, the frequency and the length of the visits are based for compassionate care visitation based on the residents, the needs of each resident that qualifies for it. So it's a person-centered approach. And for regular visitation, it's just basically whenever your facilities allows visitation and the capacity, a lot of the facilities have to keep things, only so many people can visit at a time, but it varies from facility to facility. For personal contact, for compassionate care visitation, you can have, if you and the facility can come to a mutual agreement about ways to have that personal interaction, you can, that's what the guidance states, but it should only be for a limited amount of time. And I know some facilities, if you're vaccinated, that can also play a part too, as to if you can take your mask off or not. Obviously, if there was an outbreak, you probably would have to keep your mask on no matter what your vaccination status would be, but you can still have personal contact for compassionate care visitation. And then for regular visitation, it's not permitted at all. You have to maintain a distance of 6 feet between persons. And sometimes that can vary from facility to facility as well. I'll go over my tips for success. I'll go over those after I present a little bit of my story as to how I went about getting compassionate care visitation for my loved one. So I'll just give you a side note to start with, that when I went to ask for a visitation, the rules and regulations were a little bit different a year ago. There was the Pennsylvania rules and regulations, and there was a CMS rules and regulations. And now it's not, Pennsylvania doesn't have their own, they just say refer to CMS, if that makes sense. So when I refer to that, it's kind of might be a little confusing for some people, but just know that now you just go based off the CMS guidelines. I just want to make sure that that's, everybody understands that. I don't want to confuse anybody or be like, well, I thought there was only one set of guidance, but there's, now there is just one set of guidance that the facilities will usually follow. So back on September 3rd of 2020 was the first day that the whole compassionate care guidelines had come out, and I emailed the nursing home and requested compassionate caregiving visitation be added to my grandmother's care plan, as the Pennsylvania Department of Health guidance was just updating their guidance that morning. The nursing home stated that they would let me know as soon as their policy was approved and implemented. So then on September the 9th, 2020, I spoke on the phone with the nursing home during a care plan meeting for my grandmother. And at that time, the nursing home stated that they needed to check on some definitions, and also with some of the coordinators at the nursing home as well. So on October the 1st, I didn't hear anything more. So I emailed the nursing home again and explained that since we last spoke, CMS had released their guidance, and on, I'm sorry, lost my train of thought there. Yeah, so they released their guidance for compassionate care visits and visitation, and the Pennsylvania Department of Health had also released a frequently asked questions memorandum, and the interim guidance for skilled nursing facilities during COVID-19. So the next day I emailed the nursing home again requesting compassionate care visitations, and the nursing home responded a few days later and stated that they were checking with the assessment coordinator still, and they wanted to make sure that my loved one had 2 significant changes in the assessment quarter. So that's kind of under the old guidance. Again, like I talked about earlier, things are a little bit different now as far as we just follow the CMS guidance. They also stated that the word caregiver was used in the regulation, but the nursing home stated that I would not be permitted to provide direct care to my loved one if she was approved for compassionate care visitation, as the purpose of the visitation was just emotional support. I didn't agree with that, but so I just waited to hear back. So we agreed to meet then on October the 8th and have a phone conference about visitation. On that, we met on October the 8th, and during the phone conference, I was told that I was denied compassionate caregiving visits. And they stated that my grandmother didn't have 2 significant changes in that assessment quarter. And so I tried explaining that the guidance under CMS didn't require 2 significant changes. Only the Pennsylvania Department of Health regulations require that. And I also explained that even during that time period, the Department of Health had put out a frequently asked questions memorandum. And in that memorandum, it says, if there was any sort of discrepancy between what the Department of Health had put out and what CMS had put out, to follow the CMS memorandum that CMS had published. Don't follow the Pennsylvania Department of Health. But the facility that my loved one resides in stated that they had to follow the stricter guidance. And I tried to explain that that wasn't the case, but that's what they said. So I tried advocating to the nursing home, explaining that my loved one had a recent diagnosis of type 2 diabetes. She has had frequent urinary tract infections. And even a few months prior, I had received a phone call asking from her physician, asking if we wanted to have a feeding tube placed because she was, losing weight, and they were concerned about the weight, like where her weight was at. So I tried to explain that, reminding the nursing home of all those things again, and that didn't obviously, that they just explained that they had to be on, the facility explained they have to follow the rules and the changes needed to be on function. And examples that they used were a person wasn't, or a resident wasn't walking now when they used to walk, or they aren't talking now when they used to talk, or they're not eating now, which obviously my grandmother would qualify under that. But they also say that there had to be rapid weight loss or skin breakdown. So after I was denied visitation, I decided that first I was going to contact, I had been in contact with my local ombudsman. I was going to contact her again. And then I also decided on my own that I was going to file a complaint with the Department of Health, because I still felt like my grandmother definitely should qualify for compassionate care visitation. And so I just thought, and I did tell the nursing home that I was going to, file a complaint, but that did not change their mind about anything. So I reached out, like I said, to my local ombudsman, which is Corey. She's on the call tonight. And she was great. She had many great ideas, suggestions, valid points. And she suggested as well to review like the current care plan and then also past care plans to see, like, make note of, changes that I could see within the various care plans. And also to review, ask the facility for like nursing notes and things like that, to review like where there might be more changes. Maybe there was other things that we couldn't see. I also was curious, like when the nursing home told me that there was that she didn't have significant changes, I wanted to know like what the CMS states as like what a significant change is or an area of decline is. So I was like curious about that. So I did some research on my own, and I also saw that I knew the facility had given me like assessment dates that they did. So I did some calculations on my own, and I figured out that my grandmother definitely met the definition of like the emergence of unplanned weight loss problem, because she had lost more than 10% of her body weight in 180 days. So I also then reviewed, at the suggestion of my local ombudsman, I reviewed the doctor notes for the past 6 months, and then also on the last 4 care plans that we had. And and when I was going over all those things, I would make note of like the date of something, the page number that I would see it on. And then if something was like added or deleted from her care plan, I also made a note of that, no matter how minor it was. And everything that I've said so far in my presentation, I've also included, like when I filed my complaint with the Department of Health, I included all of that, as well as all of these things that I would note in the care plan, the doctor's notes, and the nursing notes. And just, I went through everything and just tried to like come up with a list of everything, as well as those other things I talked about before, that other health problems that I had noticed as well, and that the nursing home had talked to me about. So the CMS guidance states that examples of other compassionate care situations include, but are not limited to, a resident who needs cueing and encouragement with eating or drinking previously provided by a family or caregivers, is experiencing weight loss or dehydration. So I, in my complaint, I pointed out that prior to the COVID-19 lockdown, I would visit my loved one, my grandmother, daily, sometimes more than once a day. And I would often come in during a meal, like one meal time, usually around lunchtime. so that I could encourage her and assist her if she needed at lunchtime, just to encourage her to eat some more, like a little bit more food, or drink a little bit more at her meals. I also, prior to the pandemic starting, I would provide personal care, like trimming her nails, doing her hair, stretching her knees out, because she has bilateral knee contractures. So I'd stretch her knees out, like, just make her knees feel a little bit better. And then also, like alert staff if my grandmother had to go to the bathroom, et cetera, things like of that nature. So once the lockdown started, obviously I couldn't go in to see her every day, but I am very fortunate the facility that my grandmother is in is all like one story, so that I could go to her window and see her, and the staff would host window visits, which I was very, very thankful for and appreciative of, like, that they would do that. But I also made note, like when I would go visit her, like if I saw things, like I just noticed that she was losing a lot of weight and a lot of muscle tone. So I would drop off at the front door, like high calorie, like snacks, like protein supplements, drinks, things of that nature, so that she could have them while we had our window visits. I explained all this in my complaint as well. And then I also stated in my complaint that the CMS guidance stated that for social distancing and visiting a residence room, like I stated earlier, that if you and the facility can come to a way to allow for personal contact, it should only be done for a limited amount of time, and that appropriate infection prevention guidelines should be followed. And I also try to explain that in my professional career, that the governor had signed for everyone that works in my field an executive order allowing like us to go into nursing homes to help provide assistance during the pandemic. And so I tried to explain that to my loved one's facility as well, and they said that I'd have to be an employee of the facility in order to care for my loved one. So I was just trying to explain that I was just trying to offer some more help as well. So then I also and this is just in general too, that the CMS states that compassionate care situations aren't just for end of life. And I think that's sometimes something that a lot of people get confused about. They think that it's only for end of life situations, but it's not. And there's many examples, and the CMS guidance doesn't just state that you can have compassionate care for like A, B, and C. It's, they kind of give some definitions, but it's a broad, you can definitely, it's not just like everything has to fit into this box and that's all the only people that can go into facility. There's definitely many like reasons and situations that should be considered. I also explained that during this lockdown, my loved one, in the doctor's notes, it was stated that she, there was a diagnosis of failure to thrive, and they had asked for her to have a psychiatric evaluation. And I explained in my complaint letter that my loved one had never had one before. So I just said that she obviously was in emotional distress, which is what the CMS guidance states as like one situation that compassionate care might be, a reason for. I also explained that the type 2 diabetes, the greater than 10% weight loss in 180 days, UTIs, and then like I just said, that's the failure to thrive, definitely are notable changes I felt like that should qualify for her for compassionate caregiving. And I kind of also stated too, because this was like my last, I felt like when I filed this complaint that it was my like last chance to be able to get in to see my loved one. So I really poured my heart and soul into this complaint. It was pretty detailed. It took a lot of time, but I just honestly felt like this was my last chance to get in to see her. And so I also I put in there as well, like that when I would go to the window of my grandmother's window, she would beg us to come into her room. She didn't understand why we had to be outside her room or outside her window. I told them that she, asked to go on walks with us. She asked to go for a car ride, and we would explain to her like why obviously we couldn't enter the building or why we couldn't take her in our car or things like that. So I just was trying to express to the Department of Health that like basically this wasn't just me wanting to get into there, that my grandmother also wanted us to come in as well. So, so I explained all these things in my complaint letter, and I included the care plans that I talked about that I had referenced earlier, the last 4 care plans. I included those as attachments to my email that I sent to the Department of Health, and also the doctor's office notes from the last 6 months as well. And the way I thought about my complaint is that like I had to state everything in detail because I felt like I wanted to show them everything that I knew, because the Department of Health isn't gonna call you and ask you questions to follow up. Whereas the facility has the advantage, they're there while they come to visit, and they can kind of like defend themselves or give their side of the situation, where I felt like I had to put everything in writing and get as much as detail as I could, so that way they could see my side of things. Because I don't know when they're going to visit the facility. I don't know what they're going to ask them, but I wanted to make sure I was very detailed in what I thought. And I would suggest that to anybody that files a complaint, like just be as detailed as you can. Like don't just make it super simple and hope that they'll look into things more, because they're busy as well when they go in to look at things. So just try to put as much detail as you can, and back things up with like factual like evidence or things that you have. And that's not a guarantee that if you were to file something that you would necessarily come out as that they would find it substantiated. That's not, sometimes that doesn't happen, even no matter how much detail you give them too. So I filed the complaint with the Department of Health, like I said, and then that was on October 19th of 2020. And then on November the 3rd, I received an email response from the Department of Health, and they did grant me compassionate care visitation, which I was so thankful for. And if I could find the investigator that did investigate it, I would give them a hug or just say thank you. Or, I just was very, very thankful for that they could see where I was coming from. So they, I'll read you part of like the letter that I got. And obviously I've redacted some things, but I won't read you the entire thing, but they sent me a pretty lengthy letter. And it stated that the investigation includes observations, facility policy review, clinical record review, and staff interview. The PA Department of Health has published guidance on September 3rd, 2020, stating that for compassionate care visits, a resident must have 2 significant changes based on review of your clinical record, as well as all the information you provided. My grandmother did not meet the criteria for 2 significant changes. However, you stated in your allegation, CMS published guidance on September 17th, 2020, which did not require a resident to have 2 or more significant changes for a compassionate care visit. On October 13th, 2020, the Pennsylvania Department of Health published revised guidance stating to follow the CMS memo from September 17th, 2020, which is what I referred to earlier. They just said to go back basically, and if the Department of Health has something and it conflicts with the CMS memo, just to refer to the CMS memo. So not like nobody will have to worry about that anymore. But regarding compassionate care visits, after you're reviewing my grandmother's clinical record, it was determined that she may meet the criteria for compassionate care visit, as one of the components is a resident who needs cueing and encouragement with eating or drinking previously provided by family or caregivers, is experiencing weight loss or dehydration. It is documented in your clinical record that she does require cueing and encouragement with eating or drinking, and that she has had weight loss. During a staff interview, it was confirmed that prior to the COVID-19 and pandemic and visitation restriction, you visited your grandmother during mealtime and would assist her to eat. The facility will be issued a deficiency regarding compassionate care visits and has since updated their policy to reflect the current guidance set forth by CMS on September 17th, 2020. In regards to you wanting personal contact during your compassionate care visits, the CMS memo states, lastly, at all times, visits should be conducted using social distancing. However, if during a compassionate care visit, a visitor in the facility identify a way to allow for personal contact, it should only be done following appropriate infection prevention guidelines and for a limited amount of time. So then they just go on and they say that they have to they only can rely on their observations and examination of documentation available to them at the time of the review. So they just said that they would contact the facility and they would, they would, but no matter what I said, they can't go based solely on that. They have to be able to see things for themselves. Then on November 23rd, the facility reached out to me and offered me compassionate caregiving visitation due to her weight loss. And they told me at the time and still now that I'm allowed to bring her food and visit during her meals. And I was told that I had to socially distance myself from the resident and that I could not provide any direct care to her due to not being employed by the facility, which they had told me previously, and that I was allowed to visit twice a week for 2 hours in her room. Now my grandmother does have her own room, so that kind of makes things a little bit easier, but I know that if she didn't have her own room, that I wouldn't be able necessarily to go visit her in her room. In this past August 2021, I have requested additional compassionate caregiving visits during a care plan meeting. And I was told because my loved one had gained weight that she shouldn't qualify for compassionate care visits anymore. But I explained to the facility that my loved one was still nowhere close to her goal weight. And the nursing home stated that my loved one hadn't reached her goal weight in several years. And I said that didn't matter to me, that doesn't mean that we should stop trying, that we should keep, trying to get her weight up as much as we can. So I also asked Corey, my local ombudsman, to attend this meeting. And she pointed out to them, which is a great thing, that each resident must receive and the facility must provide the necessary care and services to attain or maintain the highest practicable physical, mental, and psychosocial well-being, consistent with the resident's comprehensive assessment and plan of care. This includes treatment and services to maintain or improve his or her ability to carry out the activities of daily living. So, just what she was trying to say is basically just because she's, gained a little bit of weight doesn't mean that you should stop it because you're still trying to maintain that weight gain or even gain more weight. So after that, the meeting, the facility came back to me and stated that they would grant me 4 visits per week for 1 hour, for each of those visits. So I did take them up on that. It's still the same amount of time per week, but now the visits are kind of more spread out. So my thinking was that was good because that was more opportunities to see my grandmother, but the visits would just be a little bit shorter than what they were with 2 visits per week for 2 hours each visit. I just wanted to make sure that you knew that even though I still got compassionate care visitation, which I was super thankful for, I'm still having to fight for it, even up until, this past summer, basically, because, they were trying to say that she didn't qualify for it anymore. So just because you get it, don't think that, oh, we're in the clear now, because you could always still have to continue to fight for it. So, so now I'll go over my tips for success. So always ask for a copy of the care plan at the care plan meetings, and of course attend the care plan meetings. And then after the meeting, review the care plan. If there's things in there that you don't agree with or things that you need to be changed, speak up and tell the facility how your reasoning why and what you would like to be changed. And of course at the care plan meetings, ask questions, take notes. Be involved as much as you can. If the facility calls you, take notes on those phone calls, because you never know, you might need to refer back to that, phone call, whether it be for something like this, for compassionate care visitation, or for something totally different. You can ask to see the nursing notes from the nurses at the facility, and also for the physician. If there's one that comes to your facility, you can ask to see their notes as well. It also depends, if you're the power of attorney or not, or if your loved one will grant you the access to those things, but those are all good things to review too if you're trying to seek out compassionate care visitation. Another thing to think of is, does the facility or the doctor's office have like a portal that you can log into to get updates on blood work, doctor's appointments, medications? It's just one more way to like just be informed and just check in to see, you know, like where things might be with your loved one. Yeah, that's another thing to think about too. So when you're reviewing the care plan, the doctor notes, nursing notes, look for things that can help support what you think your reason is for getting compassionate care visitation. You know, take notes of the page number and, you know, be pretty detailed. Talk with other families with loved ones at the same facility. I've learned a lot, and I've made a lot of friends from other family members. Just, you know, you can share experiences to get ideas, whether it be for like different food ideas to bring in, or, you know, are they trying to get compassionate care visitation? You know, maybe they're going through something rough that you can relate with, or you can, you know, share ideas and bounce things back and forth between each other. I know it's kind of hard right now too with the lockdowns and with COVID in general to sometimes to reach out to people, but you know, if you see somebody and maybe you could, you know, just make a friend or something like that while you're there. You never, I mean, it's just a little bit harder right now, but know what the guidance states for the CMS guidance. So I would say like print it off or keep it tabbed on your computer. And then when you meet with the facility, make sure you have a copy of it with you or easy to access so that you can reference it. And, you know, if you are trying to state something, you can let the facility know that you've done your homework and that you've done your research, so they know where you stand as well. And then always also reach out to your local ombudsman for assistance and support. They're an awesome resource, and they're always there to help you and, you know, support you in any way that they can. So I think that's all that I have for right now, but.
Thank you so much, Caitlin.
Yeah, you're welcome.
To round it off, we're gonna hear from Corey, see if she's got any quick tips.
Yes, thank you, Caitlin. I have to say, I was so little help in comparison to the hard work Caitlin put into this whole system. She spent weeks researching and reviewing records and looking at all the guidance, you know, line by line. This letter she wrote was amazing. She really put in the work for it. So, you know, we really appreciate that families are dedicated, and Caitlin is one of the best. So us as ombudsmen, we're always happy to assist and we want to help, but we also need your help as family members, because you know your loved one best, especially when we're trying to make a case for compassionate care visits, because you'll notice those little changes. The home should notice them as well, but you're going to notice them better than we will when we're just walking into the situation, even if we know your loved one. So we need your input, and you know, if you can work as hard as Caitlin did, I think you'll be good. And genuinely, because an aspect of compassionate care visitation is that someone needs emotional support, I feel like we could probably make a case for compassionate care visits for literally every resident in the house, because who isn't suffering right now? It's us outside, we're all experiencing emotional distress. Those residents definitely are. So I really feel like most residents could potentially be eligible. So in addition to the notes Caitlin made, like she said, request records so that you can prove your case. You can use the home's own words really against them when they call you with concerns, or say that there was a change in your loved one's behaviors or a cognitive decline. You know, if they're behaving differently, the home is required to document that. And especially at nursing homes, there's certain scales and screenings they do. There's a depression scale that they should be doing regularly, as well as cognitive screens. So you can actually request, the social worker should be doing very regular checks. Often it's called a BIMS, B-I-M-S, and it stands for, I'm gonna have to look it up, brief interview for mental status. So that's a 0 to 15 rating on what your loved one's mental status is. So you can ask, what have her past 5 BIM score spin. And that'll give you an idea. If there is a decline, whether it's natural or not, it's still a decline. And often they try to off-put it, well, this is just the natural progression of her disease. Well, it's still a decline, and it is significant to that resident, so it should be significant to them. Other things to note, weight loss. All those records should be very well documented. And if someone is losing weight, they should be doing more frequent weight checks. That may also indicate dehydration. So those are things to keep an eye on, and you as a family member can encourage intake there. Also, nursing homes must document what percentage of a meal is eaten. So if they're seeing, okay, this resident's typically only eating 25% of their meal, well then, okay, we need to do some work there. And if a family member can help encourage and cue for meals, that is plenty justifiable for compassionate care visits. Keep an eye on when you try to communicate with your loved one. Are there changes in the past 20 months at this point? But social isolation, depression, that cognitive decline, any changes in behaviors, any increase in crying. You can ask for the progress notes so that you hear what's really going on behind the scenes. Hopefully they are documenting that. If there's an increase in falls, that's very significant. That's something that they must be documenting. So you can use that as evidence. Another part of compassionate care visitation is that if there's a new situation, if your loved one just moved to the home, if they move to a new area of the home, those adjustments can be difficult. And those are part of the specific guidance that says compassionate care visits can be authorized for those reasons. Any recent losses, if they have had an amputation, if they have a death in the family, all of those are justifications in themselves for compassionate care visits. So keep an eye on any of those health changes. Those are definitely reasons why your loved one will probably need some extra emotional support. Clergy are also appropriate compassionate care visitors. That doesn't mean that they'd have to be the only visitor, but spiritual support, especially right now, is very valid. That in itself can improve and maintain that psychosocial status. So that's something to think about. I know no family member wants to give up their compassionate care visits to clergy, but you can have more than one person visit. So that's definitely worth looking into as well, if that'll help your loved one's emotional status. Use and share that guidance. We're always able as ombudsman to share whatever guidance is available through CMS or Department of Health, or the state also released specific guidance on visitation for personal care homes and assisted living communities. So it's out there. It's just getting your hands on it, and us ombudsmen have it. It's out on the internet, but we're always happy to point you in that right direction. So Caitlin mentioned something really important. I've been fighting with homes this whole time pretty much on explaining that compassionate care visits are not just for end of life. They're not just for hospice. They're not for temporary until someone can get back on their feet or starts eating better again or gains a couple of pounds. Because why, if it's working and it's part of the care plan, then it should maintain. There's Caitlin read that regulation that they do have an obligation to attain and maintain the highest possible status, physically, psychosocial, emotional status for your loved one. So you can use those things and quote those regulations in your quote care plans, in a complaint that you might make, or just a general request. We always urge you to go to the home first before you go to the Department of Health. And Caitlin did her due diligence. She went back to the home multiple times and pled and did her best, even warned them she was going to go to the Department of Health, and they were still unresponsive, and ultimately were forced, thanks to a citation, to give in. So you do have to put in that hard work, and it was not a quick process, but it was worth it in the end, thank goodness. So Caitlin's right. The Department of Health or the Department of Human Services for Personal Care and Assisted Living, they're not going to call you back when you file a complaint. They're not going to follow up with you at all other than the letter saying it's substantiated or not. So it's really important that you give as much detail and anticipate what the home is going to say so that you can already respond ahead of time. Because she's right, they have the upper hand there when they're showing and manipulating things or really not giving the full picture that the family member can. So that's all I have, but feel free to open it up for questions.
Absolutely. If anybody has any questions, let us know. Either raise your hand or go ahead and put it in the chat. I'm going to put up a poll for everyone too. Only 2 questions here. So we want to see how many of you guys have been designated as compassionate caregivers. And also if your facility is talking at all about the holidays that are coming up, because that's important information. Go ahead, Jeannie. I see you have your hand up.
Hi there, I'm unmuted. Caitlin, you had said at the beginning that the doctor's diagnosis of failure to thrive and recommending the psychiatric evaluation, do you feel that was key, one of the key elements in getting the department to see your point of view?
I feel like that was like definitely part of the story. I mean, like when the Department of Health wrote back and said that she didn't meet the qualification for the 2 areas of decline. So I don't know if the psychiatric evaluation and the failure to thrive like what played a part in it, but maybe it did. They didn't really say, like, I don't know if that made played a part or not. I think that it was helpful that whoever they interviewed at the nursing home like did state that I had gone in before the pandemic to help assist with meals. So that was, I think, an important factor. But I don't know. I mean, I think I was just trying to paint them an overall picture of things that had definitely changed since the pandemic started. And those were 2 key components, and I felt like those were big changes too, but yeah, I don't know if they didn't really give a reason as to why they, like that was one way or another, like that they justified it or not.
Thank you.
One thing I meant to mention before as well, I always encourage, if your loved one is in a nursing home, you can go to the Medicare.care-compare website. It's medicare.gov /care-compare. You can just Google it. But on there, you can actually compare your loved one's nursing home to other nursing homes, and you can look at how good they are at preventing pressure sores, preventing rehospitalizations, falls, loss of continence, Because I hate to put it this way, but you can use that in your efforts to say, hey, obviously you guys aren't doing a great job at maintaining this. She needs my support to do this. So you can use those guidelines as well to, prop up your argument.
Excellent point there, Corey. I always forget about that website, but it is a really good one to check out. And just wanted
Also looking at the locatory, the nursing home locatory, if you go back in previous surveys for a given facility, you can see how many surveys they have had that have been complaint related. And I think that's important too, because you can see in a history of the facility of repeated violations there in those complaint surveys.
excellent point.
There is another interesting comment in the chat that for Pennsylvania, the Essential Family Caregiver Designation is only in effect during the state of emergency. And of course, it's expired here in Pennsylvania. So now that's not the same thing that Caitlin was involved in. And both Caitlin and Corey were very tenacious in getting this accomplished, which, I mean, it's fantastic.
The other thing to note too about the Essential Family Caregiver Act is it's great. I'm glad that they're trying to get that there's things in place like that, but it still leaves a lot of the power up to the facility to decide. They ultimately get to make the decision. So you still have to advocate for your loved one, even to utilize something like that as well, at least from my understanding. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I understood when I was reading it, which is unfortunate because I still feel like the power still rests in the hands of the facility to decide whether, the families can come in or not. So, but yeah.
I agree with you, Caitlin and Jamie. That is Act 67 as passed in 2021. That is the Essential Caregiver Act. And Jamie is correct when she says it's only in effect during the actual declared emergency. And it didn't even go into effect until more than 60 days after the emergency was over in Pennsylvania. So it was in committee for so long, it just went nowhere.
Absolutely. That's it's complicated to write these, acts and legislation and then to get them through. It's very time consuming. Absolutely. And thank you everyone who did participate in the poll. Wanted to go over those real quick. It looks like we had 2 folks that were designated as compassionate caregivers and a couple folks that are interested. So hopefully you'll benefit from tonight's presentation. We're also going to follow it up with Caitlin's tips and then a tip sheet from the Consumer Voice as well about making your case for compassionate caregiver. And we had 100% of our participants say that their facilities have not shared anything about the upcoming holidays. So we definitely got some work to do there. Any other questions for Corey or Caitlin?
I don't see any in the chat, but they are to be commended for keeping on it, and especially Caitlin for being so dedicated to her grandmother.
Absolutely. Very impressive.
Oh, I was wondering if I could ask something about the holidays.
Sure.
My family member is in a personal care facility, and it's almost the place kind of goes dead over the weekend. There's kind of a skeleton crew. There's often nobody in the office, and the security guard is watching the front door. There's no social activities. So So between the security guard and the nurse, whatever nursing, nurses is in the nurse's office. That's about it in terms of leadership, and the rest would there's no cleaners, but of course the residents that need, personal care in terms of being taken in their wheelchairs to meals and help with things like that. So is that, I just wanted to ask others who have loved ones in personal care. That's such a bleak weekend and many holidays fall on weekends. For example, it just happened that Halloween fell on Sunday. So they did Halloween on Thursday, which was kind, but lame, So anyway, do other attendees at this meeting have any comments, or is everybody in a nursing home facility that's here today? There's only 22 people here today. So. I mean, is that just the way it is? And we take our family member out, whenever we can, for a meal and stuff.
Peg, this isn't really answering your question, but like today, I went into a personal care home that had, as of Sunday, gotten free of COVID. And so this is like a second or third round of being locked down. And I went in there today. They are like 90% of them are out of their room in 2 back-to-back activities. I mean, you can tell they want to get back into life just like everybody else does. So I'm sure this has a big impact your loved one if there's nothing going on in the facility, especially on the weekends. It makes it really hard for them.
There's not much in social activities during the week. There's one staff it's a small facility, in a small kind of old-fashioned, traditional, one of those old mansion type places, and it's very warm and friendly. But it's when I get brochures from some of these CCRCs, and seems like they're like practically round the clock with stuff to do, for anyone who has a mind. So it almost seems as if they haven't been on lockdown for a long time. They've been quite successful, although it's not very transparent either. So we always kind of do wink, wink, nod, nod when we're told that we're 100% COVID free, not really specifying whether that's staff plus residents and stuff like that. Anyway, we just kind of live with this furry, murky reality. But I don't know. It seems as if the resident, it's not well lit. It's kind of a dull and dreary place. Their big excitement for the day is going out on the deck, and especially in the morning, the deck faces the east and it's very sunny and it's gorgeous grounds. But nobody wants to come out for like group sings. Nobody wants to come out for let's move our bodies, exercise class. Bingo never fails. So the bingo devotees, come hell or high water, they're there. It's a little informal. Like one staff member got permission to have a small informal poker game. And of course, that drew out a certain segment of my family member was all about it. So it kind of depends. I mean, many of the people, there's nothing wrong with them. They don't have dementia or Alzheimer's. It's just a dull place, and it feels like they've gotten used to just not expecting much. And when something's presented, they're like, they're not used to rustling their bones too much. But okay, well, that's exciting to know.
Sure. Yeah, they can definitely do that, Peg. I mean, I'm happy that you brought that up because I've had several facilities that are, laid back, kind of like you said, the smaller facilities. But it just seems like perhaps they're not asking what the residents really want to participate in.
Exactly. Yeah. In fact, that sort of verges on another point. They were really in a bad way. I haven't named the facility, so this isn't telling tales out of school, but at the height of 2020, they were in a very bad way for even reporting anything because whole computer system was so antiquated that it couldn't even tap into like the state systems or anything like that. So,
Oh,
and of course they were too embarrassed. So it took a while. So
sure.
in a way, COVID was like a blessing that kind of rocketed them into the 21st century, at a really good clip. Money. I was told that electronics money was given to everybody, and they did buy one or two iPads for people to visit electronically with their loved ones. But most of that money went into, ripping everything out of the office and setting up a modern system, especially for the nursing office. I mean, I don't think about it too much. It's too disturbing. But anyway, in the wake of all that, they have a contract ongoing into the future contract with Rite Aid, and who's going to come and give not the booster shot, but flu shot, and then a little bit later the pneumonia shot. So the booster shot seems to be scarcer than hen's teeth. So anyway, my main point with that story was supposed to be that they contacted me as my family member's healthcare power of attorney, instead of asking him, like, to sign the paper. And I even asked, the office and the nursing staff, and they never responded, as to why they hadn't just, shown him the paper and have him check off the marks and sign his name. He's, as I say, he's hard of hearing, and I think they sometimes forget that and take his quietness as depression or not being with it or something. But yeah, so I printed it out and had him sign it, have him turn it in. Anyway,
Very
things
good.
like that. It's not worth making a campaign over. It's just this like gentle pushing all the time. But yeah, these little small guys, I keep wondering what's going to happen as expenses and everything keep going up and up. We want to pay staff something more approaching that $15 minimum wage. And they do not have the deep pockets of the facilities that have gone into, corporate networks. So I'm really wondering how long some of them can hang on. So just an observation.
Absolutely, Peg. That's something that we as ombudsmen worry about a lot. Because they're small but mighty. There's a lot of them that they serve, and we don't have another area for these folks to go, especially if they're on a supplemental income or something of that nature. It's a big struggle.
Now, this particular one caters to low income and extremely low income individuals, elderly or not, who have no family, and they are filling a vital gap in our system.
Absolutely. And I mean, you might want to share with them some information about the Project Alpha.
Okay.
It is doing some great things with trying to support the SSI facilities. So I don't know if anybody could throw that in the chat for us.
So those facilities are called SSI facilities?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, my family member, he and I are both teachers, so we have decent. I think they're really grateful when someone with more than SSI to throw into their budget. Yeah. So. But the bulk of their clientele is definitely low income. Yeah. Okay, I'm getting a call. I have to have a good day, everybody. Okay, bye-bye.
All righty. And I think we already covered the open discussion. I just forgot that I had another slide for it. So I just wanted to put a reminder out to everyone. Don't struggle alone. There's plenty of us here that want to help you. So please reach out to us, through email or on the Facebook page, or if you know your local ombudsman, give them a call. I know they would much rather talk to you than have you out there struggling. So we have a lot of resources in our pocket. We will figure it out with you. So just give us a call.
Jamie, can I interrupt?
Sure.
That there is someone, Mary Rose just typed in that Cynthia Gartman is on with us tonight, and she's involved in the Alpha Project.
Wonderful. Perhaps we can talk to, maybe we can get Alpha on one of our upcoming meetings in the new year. We'll have to
Yeah.
remember that.
Hi, Jamie, can you hear me?
Oh, there's Shelley.
Hi, that's my wife.
I'm sorry, Shelley. I got it.
That's all right. No,
Finding under Mary Rose tonight, messing us up.
I thought, oh, Mary Rose, I don't know.
we were chopping and we're in the kitchen now. Anyway, Cynthia Gartman is, she is with the Alpha Project, and I testified with her in front of the Franklin County Commissioners. And what she's seeking is money out of the COVID funds to help Alpha facilities, and those are the ones that are small and have SSI beds. And the problem is we're losing them too fast, and there's not going to be enough. So she's got a big project going in the county, and someone by the name of, let me see if I can pull it up, Diane Benaknan. I don't know if that's a name anybody knows. She's been very involved in the Alpha Project, and I think she did something for WellSpan just recently on a review of their leadership role in healthcare in the counties that they're in. So either one, Diane Benaknan or Cynthia Gartman, are the ones if you want to push forward, because they do a lot more than asking for money. They arrange for volunteers to help the folks in the personal care homes, and also with money to help them over the hump. So it's a multifaceted arrangement. Anyway, thanks.
Thank you, Shelley. Always appreciate your insight. And going forward, we actually have our last 3 meetings of the year, believe it or not. On the 16th, we're going to talk about holidays near and far, celebrating during an outbreak and how leave of absences will be working. We're going to talk about that and the consumer voice. So we got Robin Grant and Jocelyn Bogdan are going to come in for that to discuss a little bit of the CMS rules regarding the leave of absence and some of the things that they're seeing across the nation with the facilities. And then on November 30th, we're going to hear from Eric Goldwyn, excuse me. He's going to share the latest nursing home report and Long-Term Care Community Coalition's Nursing Home 411 data centers. We're looking forward to that. And then we're going to round off the year on December 14th with our peers. We're going to invite them back to share a little bit of what their holiday experience has been in long-term care. We're going to kind of compare that from last year to this year and see what has changed and, what work might still need to occur. As you notice, this will be our last meeting. We should technically have a meeting on December 28th, but being that it's so close to the holidays, we're just going to call that a wrap for the VFC for the year. And then we'll be back early January with everyone. So if anybody has any topics that they would like, give us a shout out. You can jump onto our Facebook page. There are 2 sections in here. This is our everyone can see Facebook page. So you can pop on there. We do our important announcements on there. You can see all of our past videos. And then you can ask to join the private chat area. We have 2 questions that you need to answer. Do you have a loved one in a nursing or in a long-term care facility, and what county are you in? If you don't answer those questions, I personally will not approve you. So I approve everyone who gets in there. We have kept out some folks that are not family members or, have the best interest of our long-term care residents at heart. However, there is a group of over 200 folks in there who really want to speak with you. there's great conversations that go on, some great idea sharing. So I would encourage you to join that chat area just to share some ideas or reach out for assistance if you need it. We do have quite a few ombudsmen in there as well that will help you through those complicated issues. And if you need to know what county your local ombudsman is, you can always email Jay over at the State Ombudsman Office at ltc-ombudsman@pa.gov or give them a call, 717-783-8975. And thank you everyone for joining us this evening. Have a great night. We'll see you next time for holidays near and far.